Good morning. We meet again. Uh, Every time I'm sitting here waiting to press the record button, there's always the surface tension that I'm talking about. Always the surface tension. I tend to be able to pass through it quickly. Surface tension, breaking the ice, I talked about yesterday. Equally, it's a threshold feeling. It's a liminal experience. And sometimes I categorize it in my own life as like the moment has a bouncer. The moment is like it is like the ultimately sweet nightclub that you want to get into, and there's the bouncer at the door. And every time you want to go in there and celebrate, the bouncer's at the door. Wait a minute, my friend. You want in this place? Are you on the guest list? And the only answer, of course, is being in love. Being in love is what the bouncer understands. And this is not something that I can intellectualize to you. This is not something that I can quantify really, except to say that it's my living experience, and that every time that bouncer has been like, whoa, 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 I just stay true to my loving essence, which I don't know how that sounds to you, but for me, it means it doesn't matter, you know? It means that I'm allowing my best, most devotional, most disciplined self to just be present. Hey, I just want to spread some love around this place, you know? And then the bouncer, of course, get in there. Anyway, of course, I'm talking about surface tension. Of course, I'm talking about breaking the ice. I'm like Rumi. I can be a poet, you know, because I'm describing what ecstasy feels like. I just want to get into that club and party and just smile and spread the joy around. And in the end of the day, it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens, because love guides the quality. And the living moment always yields to loving. It always does, you know? Maybe not what's in your mind, maybe not what you want to get, but it's always there, and it's always rich, and it's always rewarding, you know? So, you know, every time I approach my true being, the bouncer's always there, you know? Hey, whoa, 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 you want in this place? Are you on the guest list? You better believe I'm on the guest list, baby. Because everyone on this earth is on the guest list, right? But unfortunately, many people don't even remember the ticket of admission. You know what I mean? The ticket of admission. Anyway, here I am. I got my African shirt on because I am in my role as Dream Hunter right now. It's still the morning, but it's Saturday, so I'm going to meet the Silver Seal. We're going to play some music. And then we're going to let some things happen, and hopefully I'll have something exciting to share tomorrow when that's all, when we've gone through it. But at the end of the day, the ticket to admission is I don't know if tomorrow's going to come. I do not. I got to be here and be here right now, and that opens the possibility, the ultimate and the infinite possibility of being in this living moment. Now, I am a dream hunter. I'm the dream hunter because I just coined the phrase, you know, but as a idea structure is very simple, you know. I deliberately seek out experiences which get me outside of my limiting faculties. And when I'm there, I use all my resources to create an experience which adds to me, increases me, or perhaps in another way, diminishes me and removes me from the equation and allows something else to happen. It's hard. It's hard to talk about because I'm talking about the threshold. I'm talking about the liminal experience. You know, What does it mean to get into that club? What does it mean? It just means being right here and right now, whatever metaphor I'm using. I'm talking about the feeling of being inside something that's far more than me. You know what I mean? And far more than you. and yet, when it comes to our part of it, like somehow all of us together, we make it happen. In terms of our human realm, the human band, I used to conceive of music as the human band. We're the human band, because it seems to me that, like, music and finding the beautiful poetry is very much a human sorcery technique. Whereas, in my Carlos Castaneda learning, we're living in like an infinity layered on eternity, and that within that paradoxic interplay, endless worlds are possible for our energy and our perception. And that what comes down to is the essential piece, is this assemblage point in our energy field, how we assemble this reality, and how we perceive, how we interpret, and then how we behave and act. It's pretty strange. And so much of non-material experience is in silence. Silence of the first attention, activation of the second attention. Second attention, again, I'm talking about my Carlos Castaneda concepts because I'm in my role as dream hunter today. I'm hunting dreams. I'm hunting experience. I'm hunting uplift. I'm hunting for that feeling of ecstasy. I want to create it, that joy, the weeping joy and the delight of being alive. And I may not make it out alive today. Who knows? Maybe this is my last message to you. I don't know that for sure. This is the spirit that I go into dream hunting with. It's the only spirit. Because again, the bouncer's always going to let you in if you've got loving devotion. But the bouncer also lets you in if you know you're going to die, There's two ways in. They're the same way in, really. Because if you're aware you're going to die and you have no love, then, you're being let in to have a drink of water and be comforted by some people inside, right? Because really, the true essence of it is both of them together. So, the reason this is on my mind, I dedicate much of my morning time, actually much of my daytime, to be quite honest, to cultivating spiritual process inside myself, because this is the energy source from which my healing and helping work arises, and out of which my dream hunting, my artistic process, which is spiritual process, which is mysticism finding a form. I mean, ultimately it's formless. I can't tell you anything about it. It's a silently perceived, essential energy state that rings with love and with intelligence. So when it begins ringing, my bell is getting rung, then for me, because I've been practicing the music and I've always been a bit of a poet, right? It's like these other aspects begin coming out of me, and so my work is to sustain my discipline and my impeccable view. And by impeccable, I'm talking about, all the attributes of warriorship, right? And then in that phase, the goodness can come through. And by goodness, I mean words, notes, expressions, form, which is like hollow. It's empty. It's like a window frame that points to something that everyone can perceive if they have eyes to see, a doorway through which I'm definitely walking, and that others may walk if they want to. This is for me. This is for me the goal of any artistic expression, is a kind of signpost, a viewpoint, a perspective. Outside my window, the crows are cawing like crazy. I see them flying around out there. Usually that means there's like a hunting bird around. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I see a hawk or a raven. I've been seeing lots of ravens around lately. I've also had a lot of superstitious feelings about crows cawing because, in Castaneda's system and in our Western tradition, the sound of crows, I've got this dark omen quality. And I've never really understood that intellectually. So whenever I hear the crows, I always get slightly afraid. and yet, I put that behind myself because, look at the world that we're living in. If I get outside of my own, self-serving worry, right? Like, I hear crows cawing every day. And why would I not look at the emergency situation our culture is in? Look at our epidemic of mental health. Look at our epidemic of substance use. Look at our epidemic of callous, close-minded ignorance on the part of the people who apparently are the healthy ones, in the middle class and higher. You know what I mean? Most of the time, I just see a bunch of chattering zombies, serving the greedy, angry engines of this plutocratic enterprise, which serves the vampires. Leaves me with a very, very dark feeling. And yet society is nothing more than the relationships between individuals. And so this is my relief and my space of being able to act, which is to say, I still have the choice to be myself. And in that comes the possibility of loving, healing, evolving, dreaming, and then this becomes something, right? I'm sharing this with you, even though maybe no one will ever see this. I think people will eventually see this, but it's a question of will it have impact? That's not for me to say, I can only do what I can and point to what I can and hope that spirit shines through. Because spirit is not under my control. I am under my control, and I am merely a speck of light in that infinitude of light, which is also like a light cascading surf tidal wave cresting in this living moment forever forward. And it requires a kind of surfing. Again, everything I'm going to say about it is going to be metaphoric. It's going to be poetic. It's can only allude to what can't really be talked about. This is being a dream hunter. The funny thing is, being a dream farmer is exactly the same. There's a much more control in the process. It's much slower. It's much more mulling about the predictability that we can find in the environment and working within that. And I guess the key thing that's on my mind right now is symbiosis. Symbiosis, which is that harmony and balance of interaction between things that are alive. And in our Western culture, we have knocked ourselves out of symbiosis. And I say Western culture specifically because it's something that's started in the Middle East, came to Europe, and it's like it's been going through iterations. It's not like one long evolutionary peak. It's a bunch of cycles. It's a bunch of cycles where we seem to be improving little by little, like the tyranny of our late stage European Christian enforced hegemony is a gentler tyranny than was the Roman tyranny. It is. It's just a little bit. It's not as murderous. The Romans, they didn't care much about genocide when they committed it. They just did it. This is what we're going to do. Might is right, and we're the mighty. So fuck you. That is the essence of tyranny, right? And then all indigenous peoples, they just have to, they just to own that shit, and being a Celt, you know what I mean? I get a real sad feeling inside myself that I can't really explain because it's got no connection to me in any kind of like, materialist sense. And I get a real sad feeling in myself when I consider the Celtic apocalypse that the Romans wrought on the Celts, which is to say the Gallic peoples who lived north of the Alps, France and all through the British Isles okay, it's totally stuck. Ireland, of course. What the hell? Anyway, this was a culture that had existed for 1,000 years at least before Rome came along, and they were powerful and mighty and rich and abundant. But then the Romans came, and they had the big battalions. And I mean, in many battles, the Celts had massive numeric superiority, but because of who knows what reason, maybe their culture had just come to an end. Maybe the transcendence of that particular organization had come to the end of its cycle, and the Romans just crushed them. And Caesar was one of the main agents of that total annihilation, and he brought Rome to Britain. Anyway, I feel a very poignant feeling because they're my forefathers, and that was thousands of years ago. And so, as an analog, though, look at what the Western European, and I say the Western European, it's the British who basically won that colonial conquest game, really. And then their inheritors, America, I think that's the analogy of like Greece and Rome, basically, Britain was our Greece, like it's the heart of Renaissance and all this philosophy and art and science is the beginning of all these incredible aspects of still Christian-dominated ideology, but science coming out from under that ideology and beginning to see some things, because let's face it, when those first scientists came around, they were like tortured and killed because they were heretics, ultimately. It's very scary, right? But as time went on, the old paradigm began to weaken and weaken and weaken. And now it's not just weakened, it is dead and gone. And that cycle is finished. And so just like as Rome collapsed at last, and all the indigenous peoples who had been subjugated and destroyed and enslaved began to rise up, And in Western Europe, that rose up in this new spirit, which has become global colonialism that we're in the side of now. It's much vaster. The spirit is the same. It's a tyrannical spirit of violent conquest and slavery. And yet, it's just slightly gentler. Maybe. It's less violent towards people. And now that it's over and we've got this dissolution into chaos, we have that rising of indigenous cultures again, this rising of indigenous knowledge, and it's organic and good, and it's very much coming down to the individual now because of this evolutionary technology that we have. It's something, It is something. And I really wish that I could hear more people admitting that we don't have the slightest idea where things are going. You know what I mean? We can look historically. I can say, well, we are just history repeating itself. Look at Rome. You want some clues as to what's going to happen? Look at Rome. Except instead of generals like Caesar taking control of the democracy in a tyrannical form, I think Trump is the beginning of something new in that he is the first of the plutocratic overlords to come and step into power and take it directly. He's the first of them to try it because they are the warrior generals of our world. In our society, late stage capitalism, the meek have inherited the earth. Yes, I've said it before, I'm saying it now, I'll say it again, the meek have inherited the earth, and this is the powerful plutocrats. They are not physically brave. They are not violent. Well, they are not physically violent. They are intellectually, psychically, and mentally violent, and then they extend that violence through the agents of our state. The The thing is, the state is still nominally a democratic process. But I mean, we know it's just, just carefully vended options within a game that's rigged by the rich, right? And the thing is, that's because that's where our power lies, in this abstraction of money. Whereas in the Roman times, it was the power of the armies. And who ruled the big battalions? But the generals. And so as their society began to collapse and fray at the edges, it's the generals who then became the emperors. And then, the divine right of emperors was just the divine right of the most powerful, who commanded the most power. And then it just descended into the tyranny, which collapsed in the end, as it always will. So I suggest to you that in the empire we live in, I'm Canadian, and yet we are within the American empire. We are just a province because we are allowed our freedoms because of the power of America. Simple and true. Because if America wasn't there, Russia would already have, tried to invade Europe or come across the Arctic Circle to invade us and take our resources, right? Because we are not mighty. Canadians aren't anyway. Rambling a little bit here, but it's something that's important to talk about, because it's part of this rich and also terrifying context that we live in. I say rich because with this evolutionary tool of the internet, and with the collapse of the total collapse of the paradigm, and the fact that we're living in completely the open country of the future, means that who knows what's going to come next? No one knows. Don't listen to them. Don't let them make up your mind. This is the phase that we're in, is that everything is dissolving into individuation, which is chaos. There's nothing that holds the society together, right? And yet it is still held together, right? It's just chaos. And I think that within that chaos, that's why all these negative manifestations are happening. And so the only solution is to turn on inside and be a light unto yourself. No matter what's going on around you, it is time, literally, to tune in, turn on, and drop out. Drop out means disconnect. Stop getting drained. Stop participating and start generating from within. Find your own light. And if you've been listening to me, then finding your own stoke, finding your love, whatever that might be. Unhinge from all of the ego attachments that are sucking you into your conditioned response and to the conditioned response of the villainous overlords, and just be your own light. You got to be your own light. I am my own light, such as I am. You know what I mean? This doesn't mean that I'm like I'm definitely just a creature who's made a lot of mistakes. And yet when you wake up to your mistakes, all you can do is begin at that point. Begin at that point. Doesn't matter what you've done. Doesn't matter what you think you are. It doesn't matter the fears for the future that you might have. All of it is just the stuff that keeps you pulled up on the surface tension. And it's funny, a couple times I've broached upon the dangers of abstraction. For me, the dangers of abstraction. Abstraction is our salvation. If we can keep it abstract. Our abstraction, which is to say, what exists outside of our small, tiny brains, what exists on the other side of the surface tension, what exists in our living moment when we break the ice together, that is loving energy being. It taps us into an intelligence which is infinite, which is infinity itself, constantly evolving, flow state, right? And the only access to that is what Carlos Castaneda would call second attention. It's not analytic. Analytic is what keeps us on the surface tension, never allows us to live our moment. Second attention is that powerful, dark, gravity pulling, creative being, intuitive and without reason and without clearness, without the familiarity of the conditioned response. The thing is that also it's an open-ended, it's an imaginative process, right? This is where I feel in our evolutionary being. This is where our minds must be in the service of our living energy, our loving being as alive energy beings in an energy world which has this physical outward manifestation. We have to be that. And our goals must be goals of enlightenment. For me, freedom, being loving, healing, evolving, dreaming is an endless process. It's not perfection. I'm not striving for perfection. I'm striving for presence in the moment and being better moment by moment by moment, even though it's a betterment towards the goal of freedom, toward the goal of dreaming, which has no end. It has no end except my material end, which is my death. Death is the only end for any of our finite mortal strivings. And if death is the only end, what are we doing with our precious living moment? This is the devotion to abstraction, because that's what I keep saying, like healing takes us to a place which is not a finished state. There are no finished states. When flow state begins to get evident in your process, you begin to realize that you're just in an ongoing state that is mysteriously going to end someday, when spirit comes to you and says it's time to come home. Much as Rumi would say, who's going to take me home tonight? He knows who's going to come take him home. His God is going to come take him home, but he doesn't really picture the God. He pictures where he is, and his desperation and his drunkenness and his weeping devotion, waiting for God to take him home. And of course, God is, in his Islamic tradition, the idealized figure of those books of religious knowledge. I choose the word spirit because spirit has no idea, and that's really what we're talking about here. Is honestly what we're talking about, because infinity, the infinite world of light and life that we can explore forever in this evolutionary process that we are in with this technology, with each other as individuals, turning on inside, creating a new world, as Eckhart Tolle would say, which we must do. Even though we don't clearly know what that is, we must take the steps inside ourselves and with each other. We got to break the surface tension that these villainous, peculiarly villainous overlords of society seem to want to dictate, and individuals will do it. And this internet is the communication tool to help facilitate that evolutionary process. And yet evolution is just one story that we're living in dreaming reality. And dreaming reality is the energy reality. Energy reality is that loving intelligence that is unfolding, and which is in everything that is expanding in the material world of light and life that we live in, and yet is in the encompassing whole, that eternity into which infinity is unfolding forever. And we get to play our little part. We get to sing our note. We get to say our piece. We add our words. We add our energy. We add our presence. We add our loving devotion. We add whatever it is we add. And right now, who is adding much except a lot of dark, negative, tyrannical notes right now? What a shame. And yet, I'm not going to worry about that, because I'm a dream hunter. And I'm saying all these things to you in the hopes that something resonates out there with somebody. You know what I mean? If someone resonates with what I'm saying, that's all that counts to me. You know what I mean? If I can positively affect someone to be more joyful in their lives, that's important to me. Even if it comes down to just the moment, I mean, as simple as a smile on a face, or an aha moment, a light bulb moment. It's interesting, and for me, those are like dream farming moments. Being with people, being in a more cultivating place. Whereas dream hunting is very selfish for me. It's very selfish because it's all about me. It's all about my ecstasy. This is why it's a part of my life. You know what I mean? Like there is a part of my life where I am seeking my own enlightenment, right? Which I already have. And yet what it then becomes is not a fixed state, but simply a wakeful piece of consciousness through which you are tapped into cosmic intelligence, speaks through your heart, and then it becomes however you are able to live the mystery that you're given. So this dream hunting is something which I practice because it uplifts me. It uplifts me personally and gives me an expanded sense of being. Not because I'm owning more of, like, let me pause here, because I'm talking again, I'm speaking to you again in riddles, because I'm speaking in Carlos Castaneda's language, but I'm not only speaking in his language because I've synthesized it in my own process. I know this. I don't believe it. I know it because I live it every day. I stake my life on what I know. I don't just believe it and talk about it. I live it. I live it. And I'm accepting the consequences and implications of living this way, because that's the only way to live as far as I'm concerned. Loving, healing, evolving, dreaming, dying. That's the premise. But in the Carlos Castaneda language, there's tonal and nawal. Notice the same image is there, right? Tonal is everything, forever that we can conceive of in our consciousness. You know what I mean? It's everything. No matter how amazing and ecstatic and true and pure I feel, it is all that. It's still just what is given to me by the unmanifest, and it yields to loving intensity. It does. It yields to spiritual seeking. It yields to the hunger to feel union. And so tonal and nawal are the essential pieces of the sorcerer's shamanistic way, right? And yet tonal is the world of loving, healing, evolving, shall we say, where this internet is. The internet is a piece of technology. It extends our capacity to communicate to each other. It's a piece of this material world. It's a piece of this material evolution that we're all a part of. These bodies that we're living in, these thoughts that we're thinking, the conditioned response that we're trying to come to grips with. Everything forever. If we're going to become some kind of like technological being that in which we're just like the cellular units inside this technological being that's going to explore the cosmos. For some reason, my creative mind visualizes that. That seems to me like what future is going to be, and that eventually people who I think are addicted to technology, they're just going to be the people of tomorrow who live in spaceships. Of course, people in spaceships are going to be addicted to technology. It's not going to be an addiction at that point. It's going to be a reality, because if you live in a spaceship, there is no nature for you. Nature is the rooms that you live in, right? And so there's a certain aspect of our society where people are moving away from the natural world. Look at what COVID did to us, right? It divided us. It divided people into the safety first people who are still wearing their masks. God, it's strange to walk at the beach and see someone with a mask on in the middle of nature. That's weird to me. And yet this is someone who is inclining towards being an inside person, a person in the world of tomorrow in which we live completely inside of technology, like spaceships. Even on the earth, we're going to live in spaceships. We're going to live in domed cities or something, right? Where people can be safe from nature, right? Which is a total illusion, because there is no safety. And ultimately, we're all going to die, no matter how safe you think you are. That's the illusion of it. And yet, the illusion of risk is also still just an illusion. By risk, I mean, I don't wear a mask. And I think that how we adapt to our natural environment is our strength. And so I see people wearing masks and being safety first and all that, right? I see them as from a perspective of being an earth man and an earth being as being weak. It's weakness to always want to be safe. Safety is not evolutionary, you know? You can't even heal in safety, because safety is very difficult to approach when you're a victim of your conditioned response. Conditioned response tells you that ignorance is safety. Conditioned response tells you that all that dark shit that's been trauma pounded into you, that's safety, you know? You got to be willing to recognize that safety isn't what life is. There is no safety. Death is the trauma that none of us escape. Death is the final and most important trauma. It puts all other traumas into perspective. Without a genuine feeling of mortality, those other traumas seem like monsters, you know? Monsters which coalesce on the threshold of your living moment, like that bouncer I told you about, right? The bouncer on the threshold of the living moment. It's a picture, but it's a picture also of all of that conditioned response, all the stuff that keeps you afraid and cowed inside, right? And the only answer to that bouncer is to not be afraid. Just be who you are. Hey, I'm in love with myself, and I know I'm going to die. So who are you to stop me getting in this club? And the bouncer's going to go, get your loving ass in there. You know, that's the story I tell, you know. And that is the result of my dream hunting, you know, that kind of communication. So, you know, Tonal and Nawal, right? Like whatever I be talking about evolution, that's only one speck, you know. As I've said many times before, we could turn on right now as a culture, all of us. We could vanquish the tyrants. We could turn our earth into a paradise. We could and we should. And that's why I'm here, because that's what we need to do. That's what all humans need to do. If all humans turned on, there would be no problem. There needs to be a new wave that comes from within, the love wave that will create the new earth, as Eckhart Tolle puts it, right? It's funny because all of the other spiritual presences from the old world, inside the old paradigm, they're all pointing to it. You know what I mean? They're trying to open people up and point to it. But the spiritual people of our time now, like Sadhguru and who did I just say, Eckhart Tolle, right? They're aware that this is a creation now. This is the creation. You know, this is what we're doing now. Sadhguru is talking about pleasure, pleasantness, bliss, ecstasy. Find it and live this new world. Plant some trees, get involved, right? Eckhart Tolle, build a new earth. The new earth starts in loving being. Choose any path you like. It should lead you to loving inside. And my personal knowledge is loving, healing, evolving, and dreaming. And loving, healing, evolving are all processes which can be ideated, you know, which can live in our ideas. And if we're going to have ideas, if we're going to have a memory, if we're going to have an imagination that visualizes the future, I suggest to you that we should be visualizing ideas that are loving, healing, evolving, and dreaming. Even though dreaming is not an idea, dreaming is a gift of spirit to us, if we choose to move the spirit at that awe-striking level. Because to admit and know that you're not your body and you're not your thoughts and you're not anything that you can ever understand, and that you're part of this unmanifest dark eternity that will never yield to your perception. Even if we pursue evolving together for a million years, even if we create the new world, we vanquish the tyrants, we turn our world into a paradise, we allow evolution to happen, we create beautiful spaceships in which the people of tomorrow live in and venture off into the galaxy, and we discover technologies beyond our rational comprehension, and we explore and we colonize, just as the single cells made bodies and colonized the whole earth with bodies, you know. And then this embodied layer of evolution, of which we seem to be the apex, right? And now we're cusping into some new vista, and it's the cosmos. And the cosmos, it doesn't yield to our eyes. Our senses don't perceive anything that's in the cosmos. It's the eyes of technology that see that. And so the technology is going to be that which explores the material galaxy. We'll be inside of it. We'll be a part of it. The same way all the cells are a part of us. All of our cells, we have no rational first attention, day-to-day consciousness of all the cells in our body, and yet they're all with us. They're all with us in this journey. The journey of our life across this planet includes many generations of individual cells. They're living and dying in there because their little lives, the scope of awareness that they're all living in, they could never conceive the vastness of the world that we bodied people can. So they're the passengers, and yet they're also where the genes are. They're where the chromosomes are. They're also where the energy is. They are performing their part of evolution, and they're part of us. And we'll be part of a technological entity that will be as much alive as we are, except with a consciousness so much more vaster than ours, because it will conceive a cosmic perspective, and yet we'll be a part of it. We, the individual cell units of the greater being that's going to explore cosmos, which we could not cross in a million of our lifetimes, And yet in a million of our lifetimes, if we do proceed on this evolving journey, we'll still never come any closer to eternity. This is why I know that right now is the most important thing. Because whatever evolving journey might be happening in this world of light and life, it cannot happen without each of us individually coming to our awareness and being absolutely who we need to be in this moment. This is what activates this evolutionary tool, which is the internet, and will allow us to transform the world and create a new earth, whatever that looks like. It's totally inclusive. Citizenship, as it existed in the old paradigm, was really for white Europeans and mostly men. Slowly, women pried their way in, and rightfully slowly, all the indigenous peoples of the earth who were dominated and enslaved have pushed their way in. So, and for good, thank God that happened. We are all citizens of the earth, all of us. And yet our system is still this system of tyrannical domination. And so the only evolutionary answer is for each individual to push with a loving intensity, to push at this conditioned response. Why is it this way? Why is it continuing this way? First of all, you got to get over your internal conditioning, and you're going to face the conditioned response of society, which is to tyrannically and violently stamp down all opposition and enslave everything that is not in itself. But what is itself? The rich? I mean, are they the self? Are they the citizenry? And we're just the slaves serving them in a pyramidal structure? That's all old paradigm talk. And we got the possibility to live, heal, love, evolve. All this we can do together, right? And yet the axiom of it is the dreaming. The dreaming is the loosening and the freeing of our visualization. In order to visualize what that might be, we need to dream together. We need to dream, even if it's a dream of evolution. Let's dream the dream of evolution together. Dream it and make it together, right? Even though individually our dreaming is also our own piece of this vibrant fabric of infinity and eternity. This is why I feel a pull to be a dream hunter, to be the dream hunter of my own life, and also the dream farmer of my community, to cultivate us as farmers, as cultivators of our dreams. Because break it down to its roots, it just comes down to this living moment and what each of us is doing with our living energy. This is what I'm doing with my living energy. And I keep on circling around the same thing. But I for some reason, I will continue to do so because that feels right to me. And I wonder if I'm even alive tomorrow. Because again, We're not promised any tomorrows. And I'm going to go dream hunting tonight. And I don't know where that's going to end up. I'm hopeful though, because I do have a sense of time, you know, like the odds are I will live, and yet they're not guaranteed. And so I will live in the moment in its purest existential reality of my loving energy being, in as much harmony with the unknowable as I can be, to allow that nawal to soak into my tonal, if you will, to allow it to manifest and be whatever will be. So I'm hoping I'll be back tomorrow, and then I'll have something interesting to tell you about. But who knows? Maybe nothing interesting will happen at all. I don't know. It's not for me to say, because I'm in the hands of the Spirit. And I accept the decision of the Spirit. All I can do is keep control over myself, my discipline, my loving discipline, and my humbleness. This is my offering to you. Let's find a symbiosis together, you know. Let's be symbiotes of a new earth, which is to say, in balance and harmony with each other. We are all citizens of the earth. We are all earth beings, all of us, everyone, every single person who's alive is an earth being. And right now, this paradise that we're born into already has enough abundance for all of us to be wealthy in every way. In every way. The only reason we're not is because we're in a system where a certain number of people are telling us that something else is true. That's weird. That's weird. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about yesterday. It's about right now. Don't let them make up your mind. You decide. Are you in heaven or are you in hell? I'm in heaven because I'm in love with my life, such as it is. And that's the only decision that I have to make. Guides everything else. If you feel that you're in hell, come and talk to me about it. Let's see what we discover together. Because I think we're just going to discover some trauma-induced conditioned response, which is the substance of healing, loving and healing. Loving and healing yields to evolving. But what is evolving? Evolving is this earth domain that we live in, this cosmic context where even our science shows us that it's 99.99% unknowable. And we're just the tiniest speck on the surface of it, you know? And that's not to demean us. It's to put us in our right place, you know? Let's be in our right place together. Let's be specks together on this eternal wave and take control of our part of it, you know? Let's harmonize, find our sacred balance within, live our sacred moment, knowing that our little speckness is but for a brief time. So, this is the Dream Hunter, signing off for today. I hope to see you tomorrow, and if I do, I hope that you will have spent this time pondering, healing, evolving, dreaming, being in love with whatever it is and reaching out into it. Do it. Until then, be well.